What's crack-a-lackin', fellow home dogs? It's your boy Channel Pup. So, lately, Doctor Who has very much been leaning into the 10th Doctor. Outside of the main series with Jodie Whittaker, there has been the Time Lord Victorious, sort of like a cinematic universe, except rather than cinema, it's more like toys and books and stuff, but they're all intertwined and interlinked. And the main Doctor we have seen throughout the Time Lord Victorious event has been David Tennant's 10th Doctor. There have also been other merchandising deals outside of this that have heavily featured David Tennant's 10th Doctor alongside Jodie Whittaker, including the recent Pudsey Bears. David Tennant has also been something of a workhorse for the Big Finish Doctor Who brand as well lately, and will be featuring alongside Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor in the Edge of Reality video game coming to different consoles soon. It's almost starting to feel like he never left, and I for one welcome this. But why is this happening? In today's video we'll be analysing why Doctor Who never truly recovered from the regeneration of the 10th Doctor. Before we begin, a word from today's sponsor, Digiarty's WinX DVD. Get the WinX DVD Ripper in the link in the description below. WinX DVD Ripper helps back up and digitize DVD content without any quality loss, and convert DVD movies for playback on all types of multimedia devices, including iPhone, iPad, iPod, Apple TV, Android, Amazon Kindle, and other devices, so you can have all of your favorite movies and TV shows right at your fingertips. No digital copy available? Lose the disc? No longer a problem. Link is in the description below. And without further ado, let's get into the video. It is no secret that David Tennant's 10th Doctor left a huge mark on the Doctor Who TV series. And it's honestly no surprise to see the BBC really leaning into any opportunity they have to bring him back. After all, David Tennant's run on Doctor Who was the height of the show's popularity. In the case of the 13th Doctor, as far as reception goes, it's been fine, but it's been a bit of a bumpy road. At the start, Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor managed to get audiences interested again after the show's ratings had been declining in the Matt Smith era and quite low into the Peter Capaldi era. But unfortunately, the renewed interest in the show didn't sustain, and the most recent 12th season reported some very low viewing figures comparatively. There are an abundance of different factors that you can boil this down to: the time slot, the schedule, maybe interest in Doctor Who is just lower because it's not as new and not as fresh. But put it this way, most of the people I talk about Doctor Who with stopped watching after David Tennant left. Now, it can just be that people outgrow it. Doctor Who is something that's a big part of people's childhoods, and some people leave certain parts of their childhood behind, whereas others like to grow up with it. And that's completely understandable. For many people, the modern run of Doctor Who is just a 4-season thing. But it is kind of a popular opinion to say that of the people that did stick around and see it through, a lot of people would agree that it was at its best when we had David Tennant as the Doctor. Now listen, I'm not trying to make mass statements here. I know this isn't true of everybody. There are some people that think Peter Capaldi's run is the worst thing to happen to the show. There are some people that think Peter Capaldi's run is the best thing to happen to the show. What I'm going by here is more just a general mass market audience research thing. Now, the Time Lord Victorious event is a bid to get Doctor Who everywhere in the media, make it kind of this inescapable thing. The BBC are making a statement with this event. They're saying Doctor Who is no longer just on TV screens, it's everywhere. It's in your merchandise, it's in your comic books, it's in new audio dramas, and the face that they've chosen to lead the charge with is David Tennant. So why is it that the show never seemed to hit that same high note after David Tennant left? Why is it that it's depending on David Tennant now that the show's ratings are declining significantly? So why is it that no Doctor since, despite some of the best efforts of the show, has been able to recapture what made David Tennant's 10th Doctor capture audiences' imagination? Because they've clearly tried. Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor clearly pays a lot of homage to David Tennant's. She can be charismatic, quirky, humorous, she even quotes him sometimes. So why does it not have the same effect? In many ways, David Tennant's 10th Doctor is like the Doctor Who equivalent to MCU Spider-Man, where a lot of die-hard Doctor Who fans actually have a problem with this version of the character, believing it misses the mark when it comes to an authentic iteration of the Doctor. Doctor. Yet the mass market absolutely ate it up and cannot possibly comprehend the opinions of these die-hard fans. Now, the reason for this is previous Doctors always kind of kept a certain degree of distance from humanity. What I mean by this is he'd often surround himself with humans, but he'd never kind of become one of them. He'd never have the same emotional responses to things that they would have. He wasn't a down-to-earth guy. He was kind of a weird and oddly unsettling at times space alien. He wasn't always emotionally expressive. He wasn't a typical swashbuckling hero type, more of a calculating taskmaster. Now, what made David Tennant's 10th Doctor so popular is because he was human. Now, because I know some of you aren't going to read between the lines, what I'm going to say here is he's not literally human, but he acts more like a human being. The show, when trying to recapture what made David Tennant great, often leans into his charisma and his jovial nature, but they don't touch on the fact that this Doctor is the least mysterious version of the Doctor. He's a lot easier for an audience to read because he's a lot more emotional. He wears his feelings on his sleeve. David Tennant's 10th Doctor had more human connections with his companions, and we saw that he had a sense of self-image that he liked to try and live up to. He wanted to be very much the swashbuckling hero, the brave one. This was kind of his whole persona, but when you peel that back, this is the most emotional Doctor we've ever had. I believe it is the first time we ever saw the Doctor cry was the 10th Doctor when he was mourning Rose. This is a Doctor that fell in love. This is a Doctor that wasn't always perfect about it. This is a Doctor that alienated one of the best companions he's ever had because he wasn't over the previous one. This was a Doctor who feared death. This is a Doctor who sometimes took his frustrations out on people. And this is the stuff I commonly see getting criticized by die-hard fans. Why does the Doctor fall in love with Rose when he hasn't fallen in love with any companion in the past, even when some were a better fit for him? The Doctor loses companions all the time, so why is he now so down in the dumps about it? I've seen people really hate the fact that David Tennant's Doctor took his inevitable death out on Wilf. They saw him as being bratty and weak. There are a lot of people that really don't like the fact that this Doctor fears his regeneration. People that see the 10th Doctor as a regressive step. The question is, after all this character has been through and all that he's learned, why would he suddenly become this? But to me, it makes perfect sense. And you have to trace it back to Christopher Eccleston's 9th Doctor, the first Doctor of the modern series that would give way to David Tennant's 10th Doctor. Christopher Eccleston, in many ways, was the final conventional Doctor. He was the transition period out of that conventional, cold, calculating guy that keeps his distance through to the very much human David Tennant 10th Doctor. The 9th Doctor was the first one out of the Time War, the first one to go traveling again, the one carrying the burden with him, but you'll notice that throughout season 1, he returns to Earth quite a lot, and in many ways it kind of becomes his home. Gallifrey is gone, it was destroyed. Earth, in many ways, is his new home, and the 10th Doctor very much represents the Doctor accepting Earth as his new home. Sure, he still travels about a lot, sure, he's still an alien, but in many ways, the human race is his race now. It's the species he feels most in touch with, and he naturally becomes more human because of that. Rose was one of the first human beings he ever interacted with after the Time War, and she was the one that enabled him to feel human. It makes perfect sense to me. And there's a lot going on here. It's the Doctor discovering his humanity, and that's very much the story of the Russell T Davies era of Doctor Who. That run of the show was all about kind of blurring that line between the Doctor and humanity. And that's a theme that people really connected with because we're all human beings, so we relate to a more human take on the Doctor a lot easier. Humanizing the Doctor was a huge step in the right direction. As we move over into the Matt Smith era of Doctor Who, he still retains some of those more human qualities, like his desperation to cling to Amy and Rory. And I do think the slight audience dip in season 5, which was Matt Smith's first season, came primarily down to it just not being David Tennant, and people were naturally going to drop off because of that. But rather than gaining a new audience, it kind of continued dropping, and I think it's because they gradually tried to reinstate the more mysterious aspects of the Doctor, making him in turn less relatable, through to the point where now his planet is redeemed, everyone's back, and he's very much a Time Lord again. Peter Capaldi's Doctor is brilliant in my opinion, but unfortunately audiences didn't relate to him because he was such a far cry from humanity, and Clara was the only audience surrogate we had. And Clara's a character that they really really tried to make relatable, but they kind of already laid down the groundwork for her to be kind of this messianic figure to the Doctor. And this was kind of a problem. You had stories that kind of made themselves up as they went, such as Clara's story, where one minute she's the impossible girl, the next she's relatable Clara Oswald, who wants to get with Danny Pink and she works at Coal Hill School. If you want to have a more mysterious take on the Doctor, you need very well written companions, and sadly Clara just didn't fit that bill. Pun there, fit that bill, because Bill was the next companion, and I think she was a lot better, but we only got to have her for one season, unfortunately. And I think by then, the damage was kind of done. With the 13th Doctor, there was very much an opportunity to regain all that, because naturally interest was high in seeing the first female Doctor, hence why the first episode did so well in the ratings. But the thing with Jodie Whittaker's 13th Doctor is while she tried to recapture the magic of the 10th, it's done purely in the more superficial aspects. She's more the personality that David Tennant's Doctor wanted to be full-time. She is the 10th Doctor's charisma without any of the other stuff, and they've recently tried re-injecting more of the mystery element to her as well, which would be fine, but you need to then have really good companions to back that up for the more human component of the show. And, well, yeah, there it is. So while I'm not necessarily sure that Doctor Who ever can reach the height of its popularity again, I think a good step would be reviving what really made the 10th Doctor click with audiences in giving the Doctor more of a human kind of characterization. I know that there's a small minority of Doctor Who fans that hate that idea, but the truth is, the fans should only make up a small percentage of who is watching the show, and right now, I'm pretty sure they make up like 50% currently, which is kind of a testament to kind of the show's ratings at this stage. Look, when I bring up ratings and such, I'm not really doing that as a criticism of the show. I, for one, actually enjoyed Series 12. It's just, I'm trying to kind of look at this from kind of the business perspective and investigate why the BBC keep digging up the 10th Doctor. I'm kind of thinking of this more as like, what would I want to see as a non-Doctor Who fan that could get me into it? Now, if you are to bring back the more fleshed out characterization of the 10th Doctor, it doesn't actually have to just be the 10th Doctor all over again, though. You can give them different aspirations. There's a lot of different things that make a person human. You can do moodier takes or less brooding takes. They'd need some kind of event to get people watching again, but I feel like once you've got that version of the Doctor intact, you'll maintain the audience's interest a lot better. So this is just the kind of conclusion that I'm at. This is kind of why I think the BBC lean into the 10th Doctor so much. This is why I think the show's never truly recovered from the departure of the 10th Doctor. But what do you guys think? Comment below and discuss, and as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below are different links to my different social media feeds, as well as the Patreon and join button for if you're feeling extra supportive and extra generous, but of course, you don't have to do that, that's a big ask. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and have a great day.